Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to the webinar, Building Actionable Machine Learning Models Using Trifacta, DataRobot, and Tableau. A few housekeeping items before we jump into the presentation. This webinar will be recorded, so everyone will get a recording of the webinar after the webinar concludes. We'll email that out to everybody. We will have a Q&A portion at the end of the webinar, so if you have questions throughout, just make sure to put them into the question box within your GoToWebinar panel, and we'll try and get to as many of those as possible. So, just throughout the webinar, pop them into that question box, and we'll reserve a few minutes at the end to go through those. So to introduce our speaker for today, we have Jen Underwood on the line. She's the Senior Director at DataRobot. Jen has 20 plus years of experience in the analytics industry. She frequently speaks at events around the world. You may have heard her speak before about analytics, and we're really excited to have her present today. With that, I'm going to pass things over to Jen.
Thank you, Sheila. So on today's agenda, we're going to walk through an introduction to these three solutions together and how to use them for end-to-end machine learning. Then we'll walk through the life cycle itself. And most of the time I'm going to spend in demos. So unlike some of the previous sessions where there was a lot of slides, this time it's a lot of demos. And we do have, it is a question for you to find out what demos you'd like us to spend the most time in today. And then we'll wrap up with some Q&A.
Great. So we just launched a poll for the audience, and we want to get a sense of what you guys want to see on today's webinar. So the poll is, what demonstrations are you most interested in? So you can select one of the following: data prep in Trifacta, building automated machine learning in DataRobot, or building AI-powered dashboards in Tableau. And we'll let this poll run for 10 or 20 seconds and just let everybody jump in and respond. All right, and we're going to close the poll, and let's see our results here. It looks like 10% of the audience is interested in data prep in Trifacta, 38% are interested in building automated machine learning in DataRobot, and vast majority, 52%, want to see building AI-powered dashboards in Tableau.
Cool, okay, that really helps. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into what we have here. What you're seeing on the screen is a walkthrough of automated machine learning in the life cycle. It starts really with the business understanding, as we've talked about in previous sessions, and picking the right problems to solve. And what I've done is color code these different steps as to when you would use each solution. So for preparing understanding data and feature engineering, that's where Trifacta comes into play. For the model building, exploring, and getting your rapid insights, that's where DataRobot comes into play. And then to deliver it to the business, that really shines brightly with Tableau. And we'll be doing a lot. So for all the folks online, there's a few things that we'll be doing. We'll be giving a workshop at Tableau's conference. I believe the app went live today, so you can go ahead and schedule time for that. And the whole time will be dedicated to that topic. The other thing that we'll be doing is we'll be having some additional webinars coming up, I believe on November 6th, on storytelling, how to effectively communicate machine learning results. And that'll be only that topic of, again, taking the results from these processes and all these different tips and tricks that I've been learning on communicating it to the business using the tools that we already, most of the business already is used to seeing and understanding results in. So for this session, let's start with defining the right problem. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but one of the key points to be thinking about is not taking on way too much. So if you ever did like a business process flow, it's essentially taking one piece of the process and really optimizing that piece for machine learning. And then picking the right metric that you want to measure. There was a fantastic session by Gartner. It was, I think, Monday this week by Andrew White, Monday or Tuesday this week. And I tweeted it. My Twitter's at iDigData. I also shared it on LinkedIn. Highly recommended for this crowd that says they love Tableau or they wanted to see the insights per se in the dashboards, because that session talks about defining that right problem and aligning it to the business. And Andrew from Gartner did a wonderful job of that particular piece. So that's a plug for them, not intended, it just so happened to be the case. Then we would move to creatively preparing the data. Once you have the metrics that you want, as you know, especially from building dashboards and working through different solutions through the years, it's creatively, this is the art that will probably never completely be automated, is really understand what makes you unique and different and your differentiators in the marketplace. One of my favorite books, it's a classic on this, and I finally got to meet the writer of it, was Moneyball. And if you haven't read that book, it talks about all the different ways and how disruptive sometimes using these technologies can be, and how inspiring it can be to use these technologies, do something different, and make a really big impact. And some of the case studies that I've seen have staggering levels of improvements to the bottom line of a business. So when you do things like that, sometimes there's going to be some pushback. And again, some of the tips that the fellow from Moneyball wrote about, I just can't think of his name at the moment. I did blog about this too last year. Helps you inspire and take your business forward. So preparing data, if you've been on any of my other webinars, I've shown this. This is, I do switch out the table, to at least, reflect what I'm talking about each time. But what you're going to be doing is flattening the table. And when I say flattening this, a lot of times in analytics, you'll be working with relational databases, or you might be working with dimensional databases that have, star schemas or snowflake schemas. And basically, you're joining lots of different data sources. When you're working with automated machine learning or any kind of machine learning, it's similar to if you've ever had a statistics class and you need to tell a story all in one row of data. So unlike when you think about events in the past, or you're doing things with relational databases, you might have different events from that same person on different rows. And now we're going to pivot it and roll it up so that person with all their different events is captured on one row of data. So it does require a bit of gymnastics to get your data in this format. And again, this is the art part of you deciding and saying, well, what's important in using your business subject matter expertise to recognize the environment that you're in and different characteristics, what might be missing in your model, what you need to think about, and include that in here. So a good model is really, you have to have good input. And this is really key in the process itself. And for those of you that this is new, I do have a white paper on DataRobot.com on this topic, as well as one with Trifacta to help you learn all the little, I shouldn't say all, to learn some of the tricks on how to best prepare your data. So feature engineering, that is the art. That is really where you put your mind and skill and you figure out what are the different ways that we're going to transform or create different variables and look at you. This is your money ball for your business and making this really impactful to really rise up and improve. Again, there's lots of tips that we've shared in the past on this, so I'm not going to spend much time here, but this is really important. That this is essentially going to, what you put in is going to improve what comes out. Now, one of them frequently asked questions from some of the newcomers in this space is understanding, well, we want to use all the different variables and we're going to throw lots and lots of data in there. That is fine. So initially you can do that and find out what I would say what matters most, or the metrics that truly matter, the variables that matter, and then focus from there. So a lot of times the variables that you might throw when you put in, well, we want to check 1,000 variables. That's fine. You can do that. But what's going to really influence that outcome may only be, a subset of 30 of them or a subset of 20 of them. And that's where DataRobot really can help you automate finding. We would call these the features or the variables that matter most. The other thing that it will help you do is find some undetected relationships and where these variables do a good job predicting and where they're not doing so well, so that you can look and say, maybe I missed something there and we need to put this other source we never thought about. After you know what matters most and you start building models, what you'll start to do is look and see what is the reasoning and why is this happening. And a peer of mine, Colin Priest, recently gave it's an AI simplified video on YouTube on the DataRobot account on, interviewing machine learning models as if they were humans on why they make the decisions they do. It's a fun session. I think it's only like 3 or 5 minutes, but that's essentially what is happening here. What DataRobot is doing is explaining the reasoning behind each and every prediction. It will tell you, what positively influences. In the case on the screen here, we have the number of inpatients and the emission types that they have versus maybe their discharge dispositions, and it will tell you whether it positively or negatively influences that prediction that was given at the end. And some other things that you can do with this as you start to think about, and I'll show you, is exporting some of these intermediary results so that through every step of the process, you're visualizing in the visualization tools and seeing, some of the interactions at these different levels, at these different steps, instead of just only the last step and not really knowing how on earth you got to that number. Finally, in machine learning models, you'll pick which one you think is the best one for you, and DataRobot makes that helpful. They'll be suggested, most accurate, fast and accurate, the best one for deployment if you have to have really, really fast real-time type predictions. So there's some guidance given there. A lot of times, so for folks on the line here, what I'm showing may not mean a whole lot to the business. This is where, again, we're going to take the output from DataRobot and help you in the next couple webinars and even at the session at Tableau conference, make this make sense in the language that you know and the business knows, and not necessarily always the data science-y language. So important things to do is always to translate this into business terms. That's probably the biggest thing that I miss. And I'll talk to somebody and they'll say, well, the business does the ROC doesn't make sense, or the AUC doesn't make sense to the business. What does that really mean for me? What do the errors mean? Errors can be, really not that important, or they can be critical. So it depends, and you're going to want to look at where the errors occur, and you can always fine tune those types of things. And then what measurable results? So always it's about, well, that's nice. Well, now what do I do with it? So again, that's stuff those are topics we'll be talking about as well in upcoming webinars, is making this actionable. And actionable is that bringing it into the tools that the business is already using, or the apps they are already using. We don't want them to have to change their ways. People don't like change. So we're going to bring intelligence and just infuse that where they already are, and just help them make better decisions, whether we're using parameters and filters with what if analysis and dashboards. Maybe we're just cooking in a query into an app, that type of thing. And not only just the results, the other key thing that we'll see, and I'll show you today, is the prediction explanations themselves and some of that intermediary steps in understanding that here are the probabilities and the likelihoods, and this is what most influenced this particular model. All right, so without further ado, let me dive in, and I've got a couple different demos for you today. And the first one that I have is Trifacta. And you're going to be seeing, it's a brand new one. So for folks who've seen any of my other ones last June, this is new. I had to learn this last night. So it's a brand new environment. I understand there's some cool new features in here that we'll be reviewing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to choose a file. And just to expedite time, I did pick one so that I wouldn't be tooling around in my folders trying to find this file. But I have it. It needs some prep. So what I've used is it's a data set from the UCI California Irvine data mining data sets. That is a public data set, and we're just going to go ahead and we're going to look at it. And the story behind this data set is it's for bank marketing, wanting to find out and learn who to best target to take loans. Or not, maybe it's not to take loans, it's to purchase an investment. So what we have here is I've went ahead and picked a file, and it's going to show me here my data set. And I can name this something nice. Maybe I didn't want to name it Bank Marketing Prospects. And I'm going to go ahead, and the buttons are on the bottom. I'm going to import, and I'm going to wrangle this. So what you're going to see right away, and I do love this about this particular solution, Trifacta's automatically, it has some data type inference at the column level. You'll see some different profiles there. There's quality bars, histograms to give you some immediate visibility into the trends and issues that are happening. There's also some guiding transformation processes. So as we explore this data and look at where to fix it, you'll see all sorts of little tips in here and suggestions. Every time you'll see a little light bulb icon come up, there'll be some suggestions there for you to help guide you intelligently prepare the data, and that's quite nice. So that breaks down a bunch of different programming tasks. You know, you have some statistical profiling with outliers, there's pivoting and unpivoting, deduplication, we have enrichment in here for lookups, there's a new binning feature I'm going to show momently. So there's a lot of different things that you can do here. The colors themselves actually mean things. So the green means it's pretty good. So when you see the green bars up here, that means it's good, it's valid, according to the pattern that's been automatically detected. The red means it's mismatched. And what I'm finding is I can always go in there and look, and we'll do that. We'll go and look and see, is it really invalid, or am I okay with it? So let's dive in. So the first thing you'll see, again, are these profiles. Another thing that we can do is we can drop in and we can do a deeper dive into what does this really mean? And for folks working with machine learning models, keep in mind that things like outliers do really influence the outcomes on different types of algorithms. So not all algorithms, but some algorithms are very sensitive to those. So you do want to think about, you know, looking at those outliers when you're reviewing things like this and cleaning up some of the data. Your data does not have to be perfect to work in DataRobot by any means, but you do want it to be quality input, that's for sure. So as you can see here, we've got a nice summary that gives you a feeling for if there are any outliers, what's matched, mismatched. You get a kind of a profile and an idea of what you have here. And this can help you visually look at it. The other thing that I've noticed, and this is somewhat new, is different patterns. Now this pattern's not exciting, but when we look at some of the other ones, it might get a little better and much more exciting. In predictive mining, I'm going to want to add, a lot of times I'll add two different columns. So one with the base number and then another one maybe that uses it categorically as a bin. And so I'm going to do that here. I'm going to take age and I'm going to make a bin with it. So I'm going to go into search. I'm going to use bin. I'm going to say bin this column. And this is one of the new features in Trifacta. This used to be a little bit more difficult in the past. So I'm going to pick my column. I'm going to say what option I want. In this case, I'm going to do a custom bin size. And all I have to do is enter numbers, and you'll see there's a few things you're going to see happening. You'll see the different column on the side. So it's a replica of this column, and it'll show you the histogram of this breakout as I enter them in here. And we'll do one more. So that looks much better from that perspective. I can put a formula in there if I wanted to put a formula, if I have any questions on it. There's some nice guidance that will, again, guide me in there. I'm just going to call this age bin. I'm going to say add this one. So the next thing I'm going to look at is cleaning up. And this is just because I have a little bit of OCD. I see this little dash here and I don't like it. And what you'll notice is when I highlight something like that, Trifacta will prompt in with a bunch of suggestions. So it's nice, kind of some quick getting started here with the different data sets. So I'm not caring as much about those periods. It's really these dashes that are really bothering me. But if I go ahead and then click on these, it will allow me to pick which one I want to look at. So I'm going to look at this one, exact, replace, and I can even skim through here and say, delete, keep rows, matching, set, extract, replace. I'm going to replace this. And if I don't like what it's done, you'll see there's a preview of it. It'll show me what I've done. I don't want it to have, again, a little bit of OCD here. I want to have a space between blue and color. So I'm going to go ahead and not just have the string there. I'm going to replace it with a space as well. Okay, that's what I want. I'm going to click add. So now I've cleaned that up. Next thing is that this is bothering me. So this red is I want to know what's going on there. So let's go back into column details, and I'll just take a look at these mismatched values. And what I'm noticing here, I mean, there's there's periods between here. That's fine. All of them have that. I know what these mean. I'm really not going to be too worried about them, even though it's red, and that's really my choice as the modeler. If I was worried and wondering, well, why is it calling that out? Why is it making that big red bar there? You can look at the patterns that it detected. So it's telling me, well, this has all lower of 10, this has lower of 7. So it gives you a feeling for, these may be patterns that you might never detect or might never realize. That's been automatically kind of found for you. The next one I'll go to, let's take a look, and we'll keep skimming through here. So we're going to look at, I believe it's housing is the next one I want to look at. If I can't find it, we're going to skip it. Oh, here it is. All right. So we got a couple different things happening on housing. We have red mismatched, but we also have 3 missing values. So the dark gray is the missing. So in this case, again, I can just say, hey, let's keep these, and I'm going to say, just let's put these to null. As I hover over each suggestion, what is nice in here is I can get a feeling for what it's going to do. You can see the housing before and after as I choose those. And I'll just say add that. The next one I'll look at is duration. This one only has a few here. Let's take a look at what they are as I pick them, and you'll see I did put this in there. Yes, hello everybody. I just wanted to have an easy example that everyone would understand. When I pick these, you can see right away what 3 they were, or what items they were, and again, I can easily replace them and fix them in here with what I want to do. So I can go ahead and change that. I want to replace, and I'm going to edit this. And in this case, I'm just going to put a 0 there. And usually when you're doing predictive analytics, those decisions that I just made, there'll be a couple different things that you would do that I'm not showing you here. You will usually keep the initial row, and then you would have your changed row. So sometimes the errors can be the model itself, or can be the hint or clue when there's things like fraud happening or other types of activities. The pattern might be in those things. So you do want to have a before and after, and you might use some other ways. We would call it one-bit encoding, not to get too technical on you, on different tips and tricks on how to retain the history of those changes that you're making. Just for this demo, to keep it nice and short, we're not doing that. The last couple things I want to point out, and then we'll move to the next product, are going to be sampling. So this comes up a lot. There's this little icon right on the top right hand of the screen. It's a sampler. And we have random sampling, find first rows, filter-based, anomaly stratified, and cluster-based. And again, the data prep for machine learning white paper that I wrote covers a little bit of how to sample data. One thing to keep in mind that DataRobot will handle for you is balancing out samples, so you don't have to worry about that. There's some other things that DataRobot does, so you may not have to worry about this as much as you would with some of the other solutions. But do keep in mind, it's nice. It's certainly a very nice solution that's available. And then I can go ahead and run my job. So a lot of times, you certainly don't only have one data set. You're going to keep feeding new data sets and keeping your models fresh and updated with the latest and greatest information. And in this case, I can go ahead and run my job, say what type of publishing action that I want to do, etc. And that will feed the input into DataRobot. So moving on to the DataRobot side, there's a few different ways that I can connect to the data sources that I've prepared. I can connect to things like a database, maybe it's with a JDBC or ODBC file. I can connect to Hadoop directly. I can connect to different S3 files, those types of things if it's a URL, and local file. And in this case, just for the simplicity of this demo, I did choose a local file. And we can throw in the one that I just showed you there. And again, to keep this so that it's not taking too long, it's me cooking show demos here to maximize our time. What's happening in the background is DataRobot's doing some exploratory data analysis, rebalancing the data in here, doing a little bit of feature engineering and those sorts of things as we go along. But I'll talk about that in just a bit. So we're going to go ahead and we would now at this point select our target. We can look at the data that's been loaded here. And what we want to predict, it's usually on the bottom, is going to be the Y. So in this particular data set. And it's DataRobot will be smart enough to know this is a classification problem and provide, if we did want to do some other things here, it'll automatically pick the best measure, the best way to measure success and evaluate model performance, which is log loss in this case. And also, if you wanted to do other exciting things for the folks that are a bit more advanced on the line, you certainly could do that in this particular screen. We're not going to do that in this particular session, since a lot of folks that attend my sessions are more on the business analytics side of the house. From there, I'll click that big Start button, and we'll just pretend there'll be lots and lots of different models that would start running. So at any time, and this is what's really important and different, and I hear a lot of folks in the industry right now talk about automated machine learning, and they really don't understand the difference between all these different solutions. One of the key differences is someone might call AutoML, and really it's only running one machine learning algorithm underneath it, or two. This runs hundreds. So we're talking really, really different things here. And there's a really fun and very useful topic if you don't know much about machine learning and you are trying to understand why it's valuable to try many, many different models to get the best results. Look up what's called the no-lunch theorem. And the no-lunch theorem, it's a very fun and very catchy little phrase, but you'll understand from there why that's very important. Because not all models are designed to answer the questions the best way possible in every single scenario. So think about just using the right tool for the job per se. So after DataRobot runs through and analyzes hundreds of different, everything from open source to H2O and all sorts of exciting different types of models here. We have R and TensorFlow. It will, just like a data science competition, they'll be ranked in performance by that log loss metric. And the one nice thing that if you're not a data scientist that DataRobot does is it will rank them, but it'll also tag them. So you'll see there's the most accurate here. We have fast and accurate. So it's giving you little tips on which one might be the best one to use that's performed very well. And when you want to start to explore in here, and now we'll see what I was talking about, some of this machine learning being done automatically for you, underneath the model itself, and again, a lot of things that make machine learning something that you can trust and something that you understand what's happening, or you have to have, be compliant if you're a bank and things like that with regulatory compliance or even GDPR, quite frankly, of how did you make those decisions. You can see the different types of automated machine learning, the processing and the steps that were taken, and there's also docs to them as well. So this will help kind of get over that, not just, hey, this would have been really time consuming and painful to do manually. And that's what a lot of machine learning solutions still, you have to manually do a lot of this, has already been built for you and optimized by, they're called blueprints, by some of the world leading data scientists here at DataRobot. So this is one of the, what I would call, one of the things I personally think is special about it. And it also helps you understand what's happening and all the things that you didn't necessarily have to do that would have been painful in the past. The next thing that you might want to do is understand this model itself. And I showed this before, right? So we had quite a few different variables, and you might have hundreds of variables, quite frankly, that you're loading in here. So what matters most? What's important? What should you focus your analysis in Tableau on? Or any sort of dashboard type or manual analysis tool? Well, it's really in this case, it's the Euribor rate, the employment variable rate, the month, the consumer index, and the price index. Things like, did they default? Really wasn't important in this case, which was fascinating. It wouldn't have been my gut feel there. And whether somebody's married or whether they have a job, it's much lower importance than some of these other things in selling to these prospects. I can continue exploring. And one thing right here, we talk about building dashboards. This is a fun tip that I learned from some of the data scientists here. I never thought to do this in the year that I was working with DataRobot prior, but you can export these results. So in our demo, I'm going to use some of these results. I'm going to go ahead and put this in a CSV so that as I'm explaining to the business why the model is saying what it is, we can have this same chart in the dashboard, and I'll go ahead and I'll download that. And I've already done this because I've already built the dashboard for this session, but this is where you get that. And on most of the different visualization screens in DataRobot, you will see this export. You can use this to do exactly what I'll be showing you in building these different intelligent dashboards to share with the business how you got to that answer and that it's an answer they can trust. Or if it's not an answer or you see something funny, you can further delve into, gee, why did the model do what it's done? And this has been one of my kind of key finds per se recently. The other thing that we can do, and this is very helpful for, you think about machine learning projects, they're usually iterative, and looking at where is something making mistakes and what is it doing really well. And you can look at each different variable in here, and again, look for where it's making mistakes and where it's getting right and wrong. You can see there's a little bit of room to improve. When you see a big gap between what's predicted, so in this case, maybe right before that 3.5, this is an area that's not too strong. And again, if I wanted to export this, I could export this and explore that further and maybe blend it in with other data or join it in with other data to get a better understanding of what's happening. Another thing that we can do, and I had a screenshot of this inside of the deck itself, is looking at explanation. So this is one of the things that I highly recommend when you're developing, these decision-making tools for the business, is being able to understand and decipher for each individual record what's happening. So as you see my dashboard, you will find I've found some tricks on how to take these and combine these into Tableau tooltips. And that makes it really nice. So as someone's exploring my interactive dashboard, they can see the reasoning right then and there. And again, there's something a little different. You don't see an export here. How I actually did that and got these into Tableau was using compute and download. You can upload a new data set, or in this case, I'm just using the training data because we're still in the beginning of exploration. And then I've downloaded this to a CSV file so that I can explore these individual predictions against the training file and take again a look at what this looks like in Tableau. The other thing that I've done to get this into Tableau is I've looked at two different places. I've went ahead and done the same type of thing with training data and done compute predictions. And that allows me to download the predictions from the different data here. You can optionally put it, so if you're doing things like joining this maybe with another system or a data, you can look to say, hey, is there an ID record in there or whatnot? This one didn't necessarily have one, but you can add some what they would call optional features, and that might be really crucial for joining or blending your data with some of the other sources that you're not putting into the solution here. You can just add those in there, so that's a nice tip. Lastly, some other things that I've been playing around with. The word cloud's not showing up in this data set because I didn't have any free text, but that's been kind of fun to replicate in Tableau too. And if you do go to the Tableau conference and we have the workshop there, I'll have it in my storytelling session in November on using the word cloud as well. That comes in for text mining within DataRobot and bringing those results even back into Tableau, which is fun. But any one of these different selections, again, it's usually right in front of you that you can do this, but folks don't realize that you can do this, or maybe I just missed this, that you could do this, but you can take these different results here as well and download them to CSV files and start stitching things together to take a look at what's happening in the tools that you're used to exploring data in. So let's take a look at, here we go, I'm going to go back. We'll go back to my model. We'll see if it's ready, if we have those results ready. Usually does take a little while. There we go. So now you'll see when they're ready to be downloaded, you can just download them. And I'll process this one more to a CSV file. So bringing it all together to spend time in Tableau. What I have here, and this is an example of just using 3 of my downloads. Right now I have, it's Bank Additional Full, which is the data set that I'm using to train DataRobot. And now I'm just taking a look at the different prediction explanations as well as the predictions themselves. And I'm going to continue to iterate and improve on the model from here. So You can use this during the process itself, but you could also do this at the end when you do have a trained model and you're continuing to leverage, prediction insights with a fully baked model. So we're just showing you the intermediate step right here. Again, this is something that you can do at this step and also at the end too. So you can continually use these types of tricks. Where I'm joining it, so I'm joining that in this case, there's different row IDs that will be provided in these files. And same goes here. So I've got 2 different joins, and I'm usually putting in the feed file, the source feed file here that I'm training with, and then I have my prediction files. And if I had the word clouds or if I had other different DataRobot files, I would continue to join them just like this. Then the first view that I like to create and I like to include in some of these different dashboards that I'm been building is the prediction reasoning. What's important and what's not, and how is it really influencing. So in this case, there's a couple of things I've done here. I have the yes and no. Yes and no wasn't or the why itself alone wasn't that exciting. So I've changed that. I renamed that to good prospect. Good prospect helps marketing. They might not know what why means in the model. So again, seems really obvious, but you probably do want to fine tune some of the fields that are coming in here. Some other thing that you'll see is when the predictions first come in, they'll be split into feature. And feature is like employment rate, the UR bars, has a campaign. We have the strength, and that means does it positively or negatively influence the outcome? And then the value itself of the prediction. So one of the little tricks that I've done here and that I'm finding to do is to create a calculation in Tableau to combine these together so you don't have really ugly tooltips with way too much noise on them. You just have the information that people want. And again, if this is something that's interested to you, we're going to spend a workshop on this. But we have the explanation here, and I'm just cleaning it up. I'm putting into all uppercase just to make it a little bit cleaner for folks to read because it does get a little confusing in the tooltip itself. The other thing I've done is I've taken the first explanation feature and I've grabbed this and I've gone ahead and dragged it on there, and we've done the count of the ID. So what this is doing is it's looking at how many records can be explained by the first prediction explanation. And then I've color coded it by the yes and no, whether they're a good prospect. So this right away will give you a good feeling for not only, yes, it's the highest influencer, but it influences whether it's good or bad and how much influence each one has. So some of these, really, so the number employed really makes a good, has a lot of influence over the no's, but not much of anything on the yeses. For Eurobar, it's about half. For employment rate, again, it's mostly on the no's, but it doesn't influence much as on the yeses. So it gives you an idea, again, of what matters most. The next view that I've built, I've taken the one, so I found out that Eurobar was the most important variable for influencing my outcome. All right, so now I want to know, looking at my prospects, who's most likely to buy, and I want to just give an idea of what the prediction level was, the score was, the probabilities, and also provide some tooltips, some guidance as to why. And I've put some color coding in there as well. So I've been using some of the diverging colors in the palette itself for doing full color ranges and, putting a light red, just trying to keep it somewhat color friendly here, or we say colorblind friendly, so folks can look at these types of things, and even if they're colorblind. And also putting my tooltips in. So this is when I showed you that tooltip formula. It's the prediction itself is a yes. What's the likelihood? In this case, it's 91%, but I also have my explanation. So this is because the value of the Eurobars at 65 and the P days actually prior days of when they were last contacted was a 6. So that's why that one's lower. We can look at another one here. This one was predicted no. We have a couple of no's, and there's not a lot of it, but here we go. Month was October. The consumer price index was 93,798. So now at least folks have a little bit more context there. The next thing that I've done is looked at the individual prospects. So if you do want to pull it up, or somebody's using this in a call center, or usually any sort of marketing type functionality, they can look at the individual records as well and sort them and target the folks that are most likely to buy. So in this case, I have some of the details about them. I stripped out all the different PII for this particular one. And for most of my demos, I do, by the way. But this is where you can get your contact information, or you can blend and join this, for instance, with the Salesforce CRM or whatever CRM you might be using. So again, because you have the ID, you can blend this with all sorts of different sources in your organization to now provide that additional context of who that person is or what that situation is in relation to the predictions. And then going on to putting it all together. So I've built a dashboard here in Tableau. It's interactive. I've got my 3 different pieces here, and I could continue to add different types of, whether it's the word clouds or the hotspots or different types of things. And now I'm able to interactively explore at these different levels and dive into some of these scenarios and narrow down who it is. So this stuff for folks that are Tableau fans or any sort of really BI or analytics tool fans, this is stuff that you do day in, day out. But now we're taking it to another level with interactively exploring it and adding some different capabilities in here. Recently, I gave a session for, it was the University of Illinois, and we talked about too, there's some things that you can do in Tableau, right? You can do things like adding in a trend line, so that might be something you might want to add in, and looking at some of the clustering that Tableau would have within there. You might want to add some R or some Python scripts and some fun things that you can do to stitch some of these solutions together, and even use kind of the best of Tableau's predictive and some of the capabilities it has, in addition to the best that DataRobot offers. So that is an example of what I would call some of the intelligent dashboards, and putting together, again, some of the solutions inside of DataRobot that might not be obvious. It's just a matter of inspiring you on different ways to use it. If I think about kind of a cookbooks of different ways to think about what you can do, you're certainly not limited to the UX of a solution itself. So a couple things to keep in mind. I've mentioned if you are going to Tableau Conference, we have but actually Trifacta is going to be there as well, where we have an upcoming webinar with Technion's Josh and Bridget. They're both Tableau Zens, amazing resources for you. They're going to show you what they've done in the real world with combining Tableau and DataRobot, and it's pretty impressive. So we have that one, I believe it's October 17 or October 15, something like that. And then following that one, we'll have this storytelling one, and I'll dive much deeper into communicating at each step of the process visually as well. As you're going through the entire project, one of my key lessons learned would be to think about visualizing throughout the entire thing. So I didn't necessarily visualize my data, during the prep process, but certainly Trifacta helped there, and it is something that I've looked at in the past, at looking at where machine learning models make mistakes and where are they accurate, in using Tableau to do that, using visualizations to really, really help you fine-tune that input. Some other things to do is to go ahead and you put machine learning to work. And when I say that, what I mean is, a lot of times if you're just putting it in a slide deck, it's useless. You want to really make it actionable and useful for the business. Again, in the solutions or tools they are already using. And dashboards are great for that, as well as, again, feeding insights into other apps. You will want to engage a subject matter expert. I'm learning a lot. I've been using DataRobot now for about a year, and on different projects and different interactions with data scientists, I'm still finding exciting different ways now to explain, and that's why we're having some of these topics this year, is because I'm learning from them and realizing we need to bridge this gap between the data science world and the BI and analytics world. And honestly, probably folks on this call are the best ones to do it. I wrote an article for Information Week probably a few weeks ago that talked about do not talk gobbledygook to the business. This is one of the biggest gaps we have today, and analytics professionals are probably the best ones that have been translating technical to business their whole lives. And so this is really your time to shine and really help improve this. And the last thing I would tell you is try this with your own data. Seeing is believing. It's the same things we've been saying for years. Until you see machine learning working for you and see the types of hidden patterns that it's finding, you're not going to believe it. And then when you see it, you'll trust it. And trust is really becoming very, very important because there's a lot of skepticism around these. Not all models are very good. Not all automated machine learning models or tools are very good out there. And so what we're finding is there's going to be increased bad models out there and increased folks being skeptical. And it's important to show them that you have a very solid, good model, and you can show them each step of the way and explain each thing that influenced it model. And it wasn't just, a button click in something and you go, well, I don't know why I did that, because that's a fail. All right, well, let's open it up. Hopefully that was useful and I didn't ramble too much.